Morning. Maths and meditation part 2. Graham had some follow-up questions to my live from yesterday, so I thought I would jump on and have a chat about those today. So one of his specific questions, let me get some light on the subject and then we can see. Hello. One of his questions was about maths and meditation and doing this especially in a tutoring context, where you're working one-to-one with students, and he asked, how do you approach doing meditation when you're in a one-to-one context with students, when working one-to-one with students? And the simple answer is it depends. It really depends on what the student needs. So let's say that you've got a fairly standard case, student's a little bit agitated and just needs a bit of focus, needs a bit of attention going on, something like that. One of the simplest ways that you can do that is you can introduce a body scan kind of meditation, a body awareness meditation. And you can invite your student to become aware of their body and just sit comfortably on your chair. And the way I led my tutees through this is I'd very often start with the floor, and I'd say just feel your feet on the floor, feel your toes in your socks and your shoes and the weight of yourself, your feet and whatnot going down onto the floor. And then feel your legs and be aware of your butt. And if you've got teenage students like I had, whenever you say butt, they get all giggly, but there you go. Just be aware of the weight of your body on your seat. Just, basically come into contact with your body and work your way up to the head. And you can do this, just take a few key landmarks along the way, like feet, butt, shoulders and chest, and then around your head. Sometimes people can feel very buzzy around their heads and they don't really notice this until they pay it some attention. And that can be like almost a physical manifestation, physical experience of agitation and anxiety. So by doing this kind of body scan, just leading them through it over, a couple of minutes, something like that, it doesn't need to take long, you can really help them to ground. And what you're doing and what they're doing in this is they're sort of bringing themselves into the room. Now, where you can take this one step further is I used to see my tutee students in the evening. So sometimes they were tired, 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, they were tired. And they just needed a little bit of that sort of decompression time, which was really nice to just give them a couple of 3 minutes to do that. You might find with some students that, certainly I had this with some of my tutees, that their parents would really wind them up. And that's really unfortunate when that happens, because the parent is like doing what parents do, which is trying to do the best for their child. But the way that the parent is going about this is actually quite stressful for the kid. For the student, for the teenager. I'm using these terms interchangeably. And sometimes it's just knowing that and having that in your awareness. Professional judgment as to whether you talk about this with the child or, whatever, but use your judgment on that. And just acknowledging that there's a lot of stress on them, or there's a lot of pressure on them, or there's a lot of, whatever in the surroundings, that can actually help a child just really settle, because then it's acknowledged, it's known, it's not something that they try to hide from themselves or from you. And another thing about tailoring it to the student and what's going on there is sometimes it can be like basic physical needs or basic physical overstimulation. Now, when I was teaching maths, I used to see my year 10 group. Year 10 group. It's periods 4 and 6 on a Friday. Timetable department didn't like me that year. So I had them for maths, periods 4 and 6. 4 is before lunch and 6 was the end of the day. So on Friday afternoon, and this was like half of their maths time for the entire week, 4 periods a week, 2 Friday. Yeah. So anyway, one of the students was just swigging quite copiously from a bottle of the Tesco's own brand version of Red Bull. And they shouldn't have been drinking in class anyway. And I was like, a litre of caffeine drinks, sugar, no. So I confiscated the bottle and said, look, you'll get it back in period 6. Anyway, that student came back And in period 6, they said to me, "Miss, I had the best afternoon." I'm like, yes, because you've not fried your brain with a load of caffeine and sugar. So sometimes it's worth, just exploring what their diet is like, and what are they addling themselves with caffeine and sugar and things like that. Now, I live in Holland, and I don't know what the situation is in the UK, which I think Graham's in London. I don't know what the situation is in the UK, but certainly over here in Holland, there can, in some schools, be quite a problem with drugs. And like I say, I don't know if this is specific to the Netherlands or if this is just like general teenagers and I'm just a bit out of touch. It's a while since I've been in school myself as a teacher. It's been even longer as a student. And one of the things over here is that amphetamines are being used to improve concentration. Some students are choosing to use amphetamines. So this is obviously having other effects on them. They're not sleeping enough, and they're not eating enough. And if you take a student who's not sleeping enough and not eating enough, they're going to struggle with concentration, even if they're taking something which is supposed to help them with their concentration. It's possibly not going to go very well for them overall. So it's always worth bearing in mind like the other factors around this. So I'm just referring back to Graham's questions here. How do you approach this when working one-to-one with students? Simplest thing, do like a 2 or 3 body scan. Just go through the maps. I could probably record one of those for you to then like do yourself a few times, and then you make it your own. You know how that works. And second question from Graham. Let me just scroll down here. The students I'm thinking most of, you'll see this as a comment in the other video I did. The students I'm thinking most of when I talk about meditation are students who have difficulty concentrating. Their brains flit between different topics, and they rush into trying to solve mathematical problems. Overall, their brains seem to work too fast. Okay, now I'd check on the caffeine situation and the sugar situation and general stuff. But if you think they're kind of generally like physiologically okay, I'd also be on the alert for something like ADHD and being flitting and flighting between things. And you can take it, maybe you're already doing this, but you can take it as part of your tutoring to help them with their concentration skills and find something that they can concentrate on. And one of the ways to do this is find out what their interests are, and give them a challenge. What could you talk to me for 3 minutes about? What could you give me a little talk on for 3 minutes? And then see what that is like for them, see if they can do it. And then you can talk about their experience of, okay, what's it like to be focused? What's it feel like to be concentrated? What are the things that help you concentrate? What are the things that help you focus? And you start to build up their library. I talked about this a little in the other video. They build up their library of what it feels like to be concentrated. It's like, okay, so you can be concentrated when you're talking about your favourite band, and you could carry on beyond the 3 minutes, no problem. Can you find that level of concentration and absorption when you're doing your maths? And it comes down to like the things about motivation. And what often gets in the way of motivation is anxiety. And then it's worth poking around into things like what beliefs and ideas do they have? What's their self-concept around maths, and then being able to do maths, and then being able to focus on maths. And this thing, when I've worked with a really lovely GCSE student. She was great, very, very anxious. And how we worked together was like, I would just do all that thing about like really celebrate not just her making progress in the maths, but every time she showed a positive emotion towards her maths, I'd be like, wow, you're enjoying this. And so I would help her to find her enjoyment in it and just notice when it happened. Because that thing of we notice pain far more intensely than we notice pleasure. And I think one of the jobs I loved as a maths tutor was pointing out when they're actually like secretly enjoying their maths. It's kind of really funny because they're not supposed to, they're not supposed to be enjoying their maths. And I go, ha ha ha, you're enjoying this bit. And that would be really quite good fun. So finding out what's going on there. Kids with brains that seem to work too fast is finding how to help them to find that absorption, and meditation can help you to find that absorption. Another thing is music, and I myself, when I'm working now, and some of my student friends at uni when I was studying physics, so we were doing quite a lot of maths and physics problems there. That was the nature of the kind of thing. Quite often we would use music as a focuser. So you find it's like, I love kind of ambient and kind of trance-like music, because that just like keeps me in my zone, sort of thing. And I can do things for ages if I'm listening to that. And especially if it doesn't have lyrics. If it has lyrics, it's really distracting. But just instrumental music, instrumental trance, ambient sort of stuff can really help focus. And I think music is probably my main mood drug, if you can call music a mood drug. So helping them, you mentioned in a different post that you put publicly, I'm talking to Graham here, that you take a calm approach and you play calming background music. And calming background music can help, but if it's getting the right thing for the right job. And if you're trying to help, if they're kind of reasonably calm but scattered, then it's grounding and centering and helping them to come into the room and be present there. Then helping them to find that absorption and helping with the music to kind of get trance. I keep doing this with my hands, kind of trying to get that kind of concentration and focus. So music can be a really good way in. Now, I started playing the piano when I was 7, and I think that really helped. That gave me an outlet for wanting to focus and wanting to learn something myself. And I think what I appreciate now as an adult, looking back at those years when I was playing the piano as a kid, is that playing the piano helped me to do the boring stuff. It helped me to do the repetitive exercises, because at the end I'd have a really nice tune. You know, I would be able to play a piece, and I'd be able to play it for our visitors and for my mum and dad, and, you know, sort of get all those kind of like 10-year-old brownie points that are quite nice. And so music, whether you play an instrument or whether you use it as a mood affector, can be very powerful. How to slow down kids' brains? Crikey, if you could solve that mystery in these times, that would be cool. But helping kids to pace as well, and modelling those sorts of behaviours of, okay, let's focus on this problem, let's see how far we get with what we've got. Now, let's do this thing where you just let your mind, so you work on it for half a minute, something like that, and then you go, okay, now we just do this thing where you let your mind take a breath. It's like swimming underwater. And, you know, you come up for a breath, go back down underneath into the concentration, and helping them to have that kind of pacing. Meditation, you can do that as well, because in meditation, certainly if you're doing longer sits in meditation, you can, oh, hello, Graham. You can, train of thought, derailed again, there we go. I was talking about diving, swimming underwater, longer sits of meditation. You come up close, especially when you've got a difficult experience going on. You come up close to it for a while, and then you kind of relax, and then you come up close to it again, and you relax. And so I was talking about when you're problem solving, come up into the concentration and the absorption, and then kind of like back it off again. And do that so they learn these kind of mind management techniques, that sort of thing. And be aware of what the emotions are as they're going along, and the way they're talking to themselves. Students who aren't that aware of their emotions may well be much more aware of their internal babble. And so anxiety will sound like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. Or it might even just be like this high-pitched kind of, that's what your thoughts sound like in your head if you're being really anxious. But it might also just be like a frozen, can't do this sort of thing. So, where was I going with that? Helping them with the general flow of their emotions and recognising what their thoughts are doing. Because you might find that there's this whole train of thought which begins with like, oh, I've not done this before, or oh, I don't recognise this, to I can't do it, to I'm too scared to even start, to and so you get these sort of like these trains of thoughts, ever increasingly large thoughts, anxiety-provoking thoughts. And working with meditation and mindfulness and being aware of the thoughts and being aware of the trigger thought, which is, oh, this is not familiar. You can then help a student what to do when it doesn't look familiar. And again, it comes back to pacing, and you kind of go, oh, this doesn't look familiar. I wonder if I can make any sense of it. And really model taking things slowly, which it sounds like is what you've been doing before. And another post you put about you take a slow, calm approach for a lot of the anxious students. And that can really work well. I'm going to skip over to the fidgety students, because one thing I haven't talked about, which is really important, I use my hands a lot when I talk. You might notice that, you might find it really irritating. But it's a way of getting more meaning across. Fidgety students might actually just need to fidget to concentrate. That is totally possible. And some people, that my husband talks about a former colleague of his who would always fiddle with his wedding ring when he was thinking, and he'd just like sit there spinning his ring round, and that would help him think. And I had a friend at uni who you know who this is. And whenever this friend came to come and see me and chat, he'd be very, very anxious. But as soon as I gave him, I had this little mandala toy, which was wires, and it would like flatten down, and then you could make a globe with it, or you could make a kind of Saturn shape. Can't do that with my fingers, a sort of Saturn shape with rings kind of thing. And as soon as I gave him this to just fiddle with, we could have a really like in-depth conversation, and it was great. And so some students might just need something to fiddle with. Now, in the school situation, in the exam system situation, the fiddle thing could be a clicky pen, and that could be enough just to kind of like have that therapeutic clicking of a pen to help vent that fidgetiness. What you can also do with the fidgetier students is like the fidgeting is not the problem. If the fidgeting solves their anxiety because it gives them an outlet, then let them fidget. If the fidgeting is an outlet for an emotion, is showing you the anxiety or the agitation, sometimes fidgeting can also be excitement. When somebody's really excited and they just start fidgeting, some people get really absorbed and focused when they're excited. It just depends how you're wired, basically. So fidgeting and thought came in, thought came out, it'll come back if it's important. Oh yeah, with the fidgetier ones, comes back to the grounding sort of idea. The students who have more kind of physical energy that they need to do something with, they can quite often benefit from mindful movement. Now, if you think that sitting on your butt, focusing on your body is weird, try taking a student through mindful movement, but, good luck. And it can be as simple as just like a sort of Tai Chi yoga style things, just like moving up your arms and moving down your arms, and then doing a forward bend, depends how mobile they are and how much space you've got and all that kind of thing. But sometimes doing some movement with the body can help bring them into a more centered and grounded kind of state, in which you can then do the intense kind of brain work. And you can show them ways. Now, kids find ways of doing this for themselves. Some of them will sit there cracking knuckles, for example, and some will be just like really shuffle bumming. And you could help them to channel that into, classroom appropriate ways of doing things. So it might just be sometimes they just need to do a stretch, or a stretch backwards, or, fidget with your neck or something like that. Get some movement in, that helps the process. That thing of going on a walk helps you think. In the classroom, you don't get that many opportunities to go for a walk and help you think, but it does make a difference. We do it as adults, we do it as kids. Failed to say, I'm just looking back over at Graham's notes here. how to help students take account of the important information they are provided with. One of the things which you might already be doing is having them use coloured pens, coloured pencils, and then every bit of information they just sort of mark in some way. So here's a weight, here's a speed, here's a time, here's a length, here's a angle, here's a whatever. Just mark every little bit of information, and then when they're problem solving, they can see, oh, I've got 6 bits of information in the problem here. And then you can almost like tick it off sometimes. That might be a strategy that works with some of the students. It also helps to like focus the visual so that they can look back at the problem, and that helps to guide the eyes. It's all about like getting scaffolding around stuff and using things that help do that. Music to scaffold and focus, integrating the body. And taking, there was a thought coming through, taking account of the important information that they're provided with, and simple questions that they can ask themselves, like, have I missed anything? Is there something else in the question I can go through? Is there something else in this problem that I could notice? And having that openness, that's also something when you meditate, you get this openness that sort of develops to what else is in my experience? What else am I experiencing? What else can I sense? What else am I aware of in my mental or emotional or physical whatevers? So these questions about like, what else can I use? Have I missed something? Even just as a student remembering, oh, a good question to ask if I'm stuck is, have I missed something? That takes them back, and to really do like a fine tooth comb method of breaking it down as like this bit of information, this bit of information, this bit of information. So anything that can pace and space, not in a spacey scatter, but it makes sense, hopefully. Sort of way that would all also help. So those are my thoughts. I love having your questions; they're great. It really sort of ground me in what could be useful for you, and what can I pull out of my experience bank that would be useful and handy to share in your context. It's lovely. So I'll leave that there for now. I'm sure you might have some more questions now. I'm rather enjoying this toing and froing of doing a video and then you sending more questions and making comments. It's great. Let me know how you get on. Let me know if you're using any of these things, and if they work and if they really don't. That's also quite interesting. Have a good afternoon. Yeah, I think it's afternoon now. Have a good one, and see you again soon.